Hello, welcome to the show. It is money and markets. Now, the trending message or word on the lips of many Ugandans is health costs. Of course, COVID-19 has highlighted the importance of, first of all, public health to a number of people, but most importantly, how costly health services can be to a household, but then also to an economy. And this therefore brings us to the current discussion about the National Health Insurance Scheme, which has been on the shelves for many, many, many years. Today we try to find out what this scheme entails, what are the benefits to Ugandans, and what does it take or will it take for it to be rolled out in this economy.
There is definitely a lot of work that has to be done, largely on the implementation. Charles, if everything had to be perfect before it's rolled out, we probably will never roll out anything. So my belief is we can start somewhere and keep on progressing. However, we have to start on a firm foundation. We can't start on a shaky foundation and then along the way we want to fix the foundation. Normally you end up breaking down everything you've done and then you go back to the drawing board. So like the foundation has to be, let this be insurance. Let us get right on let us get right the onboarding and enrollment of people, and then we fixed this. So the other bit that is very critical is obviously the health centers. From my observation, of course, health centers are more concentrated in areas where there is more traffic. So when you mention a district like Abim or a district like Napak, you may not find as many health centers as you find in an urban center like Uganda or Mbale or Bushenyi. Kampala is obviously well taken care of. Now the thing about it is the health insurance scheme, among the elements it does is when you have this reserve of fund that you've collected or pulled together from the country, you can actually use part of it as an advance to make sure that you upgrade from facilities or you increase the number of facilities in these areas. And then they have a sort of like a soft loan as opposed to going to do it commercially, because normally what happens is either government has to set up a facility or a private person has to use his money to invest in a facility, which is where we are getting a lot of trouble. However, if you have a national health insurance scheme aligned to a national health plan, and you have, let's say you have a fund in excess of, for want of a figure, 100, and you dedicate, say, 20% of that on infrastructure development. You can be upgrading a hospital infrastructurally, you can be putting equipment. Obviously, the purpose of the scheme is to make sure doctors are paid on time, because what happens effectively in a scheme is doctors will be paid or hospitals will receive a bigger share of the scheme depending on the traffic they are getting. So service delivery can improve because it creates some kind of competition between hospitals. A hospital that gives a bad service, people will go to another hospital. So if it's rolled out nationally, those are good. However, sometimes hospitals lack the resources to pay doctors, allowances and all that. With a scheme like this, it's easier because the financial sector is liquid by and large, and this money can be provided more frequently than the government can on salaries and allowances. So you're cutting down a lot of red tape on getting payments through. We won't have the same level of effectiveness in Kampala replicated in Arua. But by and large, there's always that monitoring to make sure that we are progressing, we have targets. So you set targets and then you try to improve the targets while you're already in the water. Yeah, definitely the options are there and the products are there for any Ugandan to sign. It's a national crisis, like you said. On one hand, we are having a health crisis where our hospitals are getting overwhelmed. At one time, it was very easy for someone to just get admitted at home. I saw online oxygen cells, the things that you can never imagine happening, where someone says we can deliver oxygen at home as if they are delivering a gas cylinder for preparing a meal and stuff like that. That was a catastrophic incidents like that they normally are harder to plan for and execute properly. They can take a toll on any economy or any country. But on the other hand, obviously, we're having a national crisis, even it goes to the business community and financially. And obviously, insurance is not free. So my message from all this is a lot of these financial tools happen for people to plan for the unforeseen. First movers advantage says that the person who onboarded 2-3 years ago does not get through the same experience as you who is onboarding now. And what that means is it's always very costly when you procrastinate to make a decision. I'll give you an example. Something else similar can happen to the education sector. And all of a sudden, private education costs go up by 200%. And then people start buying health education policies for their kids because they know that's the only way you can grow money, and then you have assurance and all sorts of benefits that come with it. However, the ones who joined earlier don't pay such a premium as you who is joining late. So my message to Ugandans is, aside from the fact that they should embrace insurance, they should look for these policies and buy them. It's always good to always consider joining some of these things earlier or getting insurance on board earlier, because then the cost is not that high as opposed to you joining later. So it's always important for a person to have an insurance plan for themselves. The first thing we do is to look after ourselves. So health insurance is quite key, and life insurance is another. And then of course we look at our assets. We have gadgets at home, we have houses, sometimes we own them, sometimes we don't own them, but there is value in those houses, so making sure that it's insured. Right now, cars are not on the road, so maybe it may not be so crucial to have that during this period because you're not moving your car or something like that. Not everyone has a car anyway. But you have a life, you have a health, and it's important that you start asking yourself a question: what can go wrong? Can I have a plan B in case it goes wrong? Because we exist for that purpose as insurers, to make sure that we provide this. And remember, insurance is not banking. You're not saving. You're putting aside a little and getting a bigger guarantee that in case something big happens, will come and give you that plan B to make sure that you don't interrupt your finances that you've saved for something else. Yes. So it's quite important that insurance is embraced at the right time. It's not too late to get it done, but it gets costly every time you respond late.
We have lamented a lot about the impact of COVID-19 on business. Today, we try to explore what we can do to wriggle ourselves out of the tight spot where COVID-19 has placed us. And we pick the mind of several experts to try and see what can we do different to get this economy back on track. As Uganda, like the rest of the world, battles the coronavirus pandemic, the economy has been the biggest casualty, as figures already indicate. However, since the discovery of the COVID vaccine, there is hope for better times to come and the picking up of economic activity. And this hope is anchored on getting more people vaccinated. For Uganda, however, there is still more ground to be covered here. To economists, the more people get vaccinated, the quicker the economy can be opened up and the more the economic activity.
Globally, the global average for vaccine rollout is at 28.5 doses per 100 people. That's 28.5%. But for sub-Saharan Africa, it's at about 1.5 doses per 100. Uganda at 1.1, an estimated 1.1 doses given, is at an average of 1.3%, which is still below the threshold. Why are these numbers important? It's important because when people get severe infections and death is when the lockdowns and the restrictions are heightened and increased.
One of the areas economists look at is the over $1 billion tourism industry, which has been literally halted by the pandemic.
True, tourists are allowed, but if Uganda is, let's say, on a red list for coronavirus, it means we will have fewer tourists coming in, and tourism is very important as a dollar earning activity for the country. It feeds into many other things: transportation, accommodation, and and foodstuffs and things like that. All that consumption, for example, is affected by tourism. So if there's a halt on tourism, that's what happens.
At individual business level, experts are calling for a paradigm shift among employers, which involves remote working and focus on productivity as opposed to employee physical presence and activity. At the policy level, experts are also rooting for more supportive policies that are responsive to the current economic realities. These request positions come at a time when Uganda this financial year imposed a 12% duty on internet, while connectivity in several parts of the country remains a challenge.
As a country, we need to learn from what the rest of the world is doing. When COVID-19 happened, our businesses were in shambles. Organizations were struggling on how to cope with working from home. The rest of the world is already there. I've had the opportunity to work in both the local and the international market, and I will tell you, whereas other places allow for flexible working, there is opportunity to do job sharing, there is opportunity to do part-time work. We are still struggling with wanting our people to be on the desk. Because for us to allow a hybrid way of working, we need to have structures that are actually will enable us to do work that is sustainable in that sense. Is our internet connectivity, for example, reliable? Is it affordable to people? Do our organizations have the right tools to give their employees to do their work from home? Maybe, maybe not, and maybe yes. But we need to think about it and bring it to the table of our policymakers so we can create a better future for our country.
There is, however, hope that the new challenges presented by the COVID pandemic will have both service providers and the policymakers reconsider their positions as they take stock of the new realities now ushered in by the pandemic. Now, with that, we've come to the end of the first segment of Man and Markets. Thank you for being part of the show. Don't go away. Man and Markets continues after this break.